What's up, you guys? It's Miami Knight, your Master Grief Educator and Trainer, coming to you today to talk about grief topic fear. And also, I will be diving into insecurities, and I'm going to even share life experiences that I've had in order to get over some of these emotions that I felt along my grief journey. So make sure that you comment, like, and subscribe to my channel so that you'll know all of the updates and new information and videos that I'm uploading, and also just to get a sense of what the Grief Nation listener community is about. And if you would like to be on the show, you can go to my website, www.miaminight with a K. That's miaminightlLC.com. Stay tuned. What's up, you guys? It's Miami Knight, your Master Grief Educator and Trainer, coming to you today. It's just me, you guys. So I just wanted to kind of give you some updates on what is going on with It's the Miami Knight Show Grief Talk. So normally my platform will have a guest, and we're going to hear their story and allow them to share what needs to come up and out for them. And also at the same time, we will learn about all of the amazing things that they have done since, some type of grief journey that they still are going through. The show is all about grief, and outside of the grief, we go from grief to resilience, and that's what I like to promote here with each of my guests on how they're doing, and still to let people know there are good and bad days, and they share all of their insight to their true to the truth of their stories. So we still will have our guest on, but also now I am facing some of my own fears. I'm just going to come right out and just start being who God has called me to be, which is the light of being Miami Knight. So sometimes it's just going to be days that there are me on here, and it's because I want to do some training, and that's what's in my. A lot of times when I come on and I talk or I speak, I introduce myself as grief educator and trainer. So I got to start giving y'all the goods, right? So that's why I will be doing some of that. I'm going to be, I have a master, I have a coaching program that's getting ready to come this January. So please go to the GCM program tab on www.miaminightlLC.com. That's www.miaminight with a K, LLC.com, and go to my GCM program, and it gives you all the information about what that program it looks for in you, and what you are requesting to be able to move past some of the things that you have experienced along your grief journey. So please go there. What else do we have going on? So I did post some time back that there was going to be a series part, which is called The Oath. Now, when I do have guest on for the Oath series, that will be all advocates, and it doesn't necessarily mean gun violence advocates. There's been, this takeover in our country for the last 9 months now, and to the injustices and just things that have happened in our world, not only just here in the United States, but just globally. And I have some great individuals that are going to come on and talk about their advocacy experience and why they jumped into advocacy, and what laws that were created, or what if there were proclamations, if there was certain thing that changed government structure due to their causes. So we're going to bring some of those people on also this season. Next, I'm going to be featuring some artists. So if there are any artists out there that would love to come on and talk about, what you're doing, how did you even get into the music industry? That's just been a part of my life for since childhood. And I wanted to come on today, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. Talk about our fears, and so because last week we talked about anger, so we're gonna some of the other emotions on the other side of anger could be some other emotions. So I'm going to discuss that in a second, but I wanted to make sure that I start giving you the training, which is in my name, which is Miami Night Grief Educator and Trainer. So I wanted to make sure that I started doing that this season with you all. But that all goes back to me being insecure about certain things that I wanted to that I needed to work through. But with every mountain, okay, glory, with every mountain that I've climbed, from coming from being a grief coach to a grief specialist, now getting ready to be a graduate of a grief counseling program here very soon. I'm just so grateful of each step of the way, because I learned so much just when I thought, the coaching aspect was this. And I'm so appreciative that I started out with the coaching aspect, because it actually helped me um, through my own grievances after I had lost Taiki. So, not only Taiki, my sister and my dad. And it just got me ready for loss and ready to talk about suicide. And, it really was a platform for me to be where I am now. So then when I became a grief specialist, I learned even more in-depth work about that. Even when I learned to become a QPR, Gateway QPR specialist, even just by working with other different organizations that I've talked about several times on my show. Doing any of that work has really opened my eye to so much more of the journey that I had to discover on my own by going through it, or sitting in on certain calls, or learning how people do really process, and being a part of different organizations where I am exposed to so much trauma, that learning what that looks like in all kinds of forms really has helped me in my process of being a better support system to those who are looking to be supported in these areas. So, but I want you also to know that coming on It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk, we're not only having to talk about death. There are over 40 plus different types of life altering experiences, which can be considered as retirement, divorce, separation, pet loss, any life, like I said, life altering change. So I would love for individuals to come on to share their stories and how some type of life altering change kind of, pushed us into our why we're here. So let's talk about those. So if you're interested in being on It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk, please go to my website and go to services, and you can book there, or you can just go to the It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk podcast tab. Okay, so let me go into, like I said, today we're going to talk about fear and anxiety as well. Last week we talked about anger. So I did want to kind of just really kind of dive a little bit more into what anger also can come across as, those different type of emotions. So anger, so anxiety, and also fear popped up. Okay, so I'm going to just be reading from different texts that I thought was interesting and to make my points. So I will reference some of that just so that you can have it. So some common emotions known to trigger anger are anxiety, shame, sadness, frustration, guilt, disappointment, worry, embarrassment, jealousy, hurt, injustices, and fear. But I want to stop here for a second and talk about fears. When you decide to sit with your fears, one thing that I have also learned too is sitting with those fears, I've learned what I desired, because had I not known that I really loved creating music, being a part of the music industry on a lot of different levels, my favorite part of it wasn't necessarily singing. Yes, I started out singing early on in church, early on in church. In high school, I would do like different little skits, and then with me and my girlfriend, Nora Jean, shout out to Nora Jean. Hey, sis, we were in a group together, a little rap group. We were background singers. Ugh, what grade? Ninth grade. That's where it first began with recording. No, actually, church was where it first began recording for me, but that was another place where I had started learning about recording and being in a group. Then I actually had the opportunity to record my own EP, um, which was a local studio in Pensacola, Florida, and I came out with Fantasy, and that was like my first recorded anything professional recording, being in a professional studio. And it was so fun. I just really enjoyed it. What I used to enjoy was I used to always fall in love with the board. Oh my god. I just something between me and the board. I don't know what it is, but just to see those big boards with all those buttons and I don't know, it just did something for me. But also just being in the studio, sitting around, talking and creating was just I just so truly love that. I'm a studio head, studio junkie, whatever you call it. I was recording back when it was analog. Yes, I do know about that. I was recording reel to reel. That was my first actual physical being into professional studio recording that first song, Fantasy. Um, what else? So, very early on, I had this fear about, and I'll go ahead and jump into that. I had this fear about singing in front of people. It was from early childhood trauma that occurred to me. And I didn't realize that until I start digging deeper into what I needed to release and free, working on my inner child. And I did that at a retreat, a woman's retreat, the year after my son died, Taiki. And it was very much needed. I needed to release a lot of things that had been stored up in me, not even realizing that they were still issues for me. But I always had this um, lack of confidence being in front of people, especially if I had to speak and everybody's looking at me. I would be so afraid to the point that it would cause, shakiness in my voice. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was literally about having small panic attacks just because I was so frightened to be the center of attention and not knowing what to expect. Well, when I was a child, about 10 years old, I was in two different choirs at my church. And I was leading the song for the junior choir, and I was also a co lead on in the young adult choir. So, well, back in the day, if you know anything about church anniversaries, they were huge, they were big, and we practiced for weeks in at a time to shouts out to Cedar Grove Baptist Church in Pensacola, Florida. Oh yes, 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 yes. Um, my director, Sugar Pie, he was the bomb, and he just trained us so very well. Well, I was to lead this song in the choir, and you guys caught the Holy Spirit, and did not know what I was experiencing. I After I caught it, the entire church start catching it. It's caught on tape too. And my mother had recorded everything because we would always record our anniversaries. So yeah, that happened, and after that happened, and then it not only did it happen in that group, with the young adult choir, with the children's choir, it happened again when I was leading over in the young adult choir because it was both of our anniversaries, and yeah, the whole church did it all over again. So um, I was so frightened afterwards because of my peers. They were just children at the time, as we all pretty much the same age, but they, picked at me because I don't know what I look like I don't know what you look like when you catch the Holy Spirit, but I was told I was shaking, looking like something was wrong with me, and I had been taken out of my body, and so I mean, I was picked at for a very long time, and that kind of just shut me down from wanting to ever get in front of people. I mean, it stuck with me for years and years. And like I said, it stuck with me so long from my childhood all the way up until 2018, you guys. And I still am nervous sometimes, getting up in front of people. But the more I've been sharing my story and talking to people, and the more that just becoming a woman and becoming more confident, I've been able to, relinquish a lot of that fear. But don't get me wrong, I still have anxieties and little butterflies sometimes have to, when I have to be the center. So what I try to do is ground myself as much as I can. I try to make sure that I practice whatever information that I'm having to display, and just making sure that I'm coming across sounding like I got some sense, so that I can really give my audience what they're looking for and what they're needing. So I think I've learned how to I've challenged myself in learning, okay, if I'm doing it in a teaching aspect, because I believe not only was the music portion of my life was to bring me into this realm of, really speaking my truth, um, it also helped develop my voice of the all of what God have given me, all of the talents that I have. I have several talents, and I'm learning that each part of me and every level of me is very significant to my past, and it's just an ever forever evolving spiritual experience. So I wanted to also mention that a part of the fear, like I said earlier, you find your desire, and my desire was, music, being in the studio, like I said, for hours and hours. It spilled over into all of my children. All of them are in some form very, very talented. Every home that we've had a studio in it. This is just like my sanctuary. It's given me peace because this is just what I know. This is embedded in me. And what I learned in my music career is that I wasn't the best singer. I know how to hold a tune now. I'm very good at that. But I could never find my voice because there were so many different artists that was out there that I was listening to, and you kind of um, get into their lane, and that's really not your lane. I had to find my voice. Like my voice is very, I love jazz, so it's gonna be like a jazzy type feel, almost gospel type, but it's all of that mixed together because that's just what I am and who I love, and I love hip hop, um, and R&B. So music has just always been a big part of my life. It was huge with my father, very huge with my mother, and I remember an incident when I think it was Marvin Gaye. When Marvin Gaye was killed, my mother, I saw her grieve his death. When I tell you, she pulled out all of his album because my mother had, okay, the lady had a mean record collection. Okay, so she would go. She had this her own space, this own room where she had all her music and just all beautiful things. My mother was very eclectic and very creative, and still is. Um, but she just bawled. I mean, she just let it out. And I think about that now, like, she was really doing some self-care for herself. She had her couple of her drinks of whatever they were, and she had her a good old gut cry because that was very hurtful and to her. One of her favorite artists, we can really be so soul connected with people that we've never even met, and that's another thing that I learned out of that experience of seeing my mother just, on the floor, just crying her heart out because she was so in so much disparity behind his traumatic loss, because how he died. And I learned from that experience as well, even today, talking about it, because I can visually see the pain that she was going through, but she used music and to support herself. And she did a good gut cry, and then she was in there laughing, dancing, and did what she'd have to do. But it was a great experience to teach us to always have something to help us get through. So I'm going to read this to you. Anxiety usually has physical symptoms that may include a racing heart, dry mouth, shaky voice. I would always get that. Blushing, trembling, sweating, lightheadedness, and nausea. It triggers the body to activate its sympathetic nervous system. Okay, the process takes place when the body releases adrenaline in the bloodstream, causing a chain of reactions to occur. This bodily response is known as fight or flight. I remember learning about fight and flight in every training of grief that I I I was educated on, from the coaching, from the grief specialty, now from the grief counseling. Fight or flight syndrome is really real, and it's really what it is. It's us trying to process what is happening to us, and it also protects us in that manner as well. One, it's wanting to protect us from harm. But I know for myself, if I'm feeling any anxiousness, anxiety, like a panic attack is coming on, my grief or my anxiety and fear always starts in my neck. I've also had a neck surgery before from herniated disc, but which flares up sometimes. But I can tell the difference from the anxiety and the actual chronic pain of fibromyalgia and from my neck surgery. The anxiety is just feels like I'm just like this, and then people would tell me all the time, "Why are you like that?" And I wouldn't even notice, and I would have to check myself and be like, okay, and relax myself. What else? Like I said, neck muscle contraction, um, muscle body contractions, body aches and pain, blood vessels that can become constricted. You may feel cold or either warm. Your blood pressure can increase or become lowered, overheating, irregular breathing patterns. It has been known to also cause digestive issues to shut down, and also fainting, which I've had a lot of these different symptoms over my time period of dealing with anxiety and also fear of something. So Aaron C. states that at its root, insecurity is fear. Fear that the person perceiving us will not like us based on an attribute we lack confidence in. The more general the audience and attributes we worry about, the more persuasive or influential the fear can be. And I wanted to bring up insecurities because, which is a part of fear, I wanted to bring that back up to just recircle my life experience with being at the church and how I built in these insecurities about I can't sing, or I'm not good enough, something is wrong with me. These are all the things that I heard at some point on that journey where I was being teased and picked at, or, you're possessed, or, just all of these things. When catching or the Holy Spirit is supposed to be a good experience, but it wasn't for me. And not to say that it wasn't a great experience, it was just the insecurities that had gotten built that were built around my experience. So I for many years was afraid to speak publicly or talk to a crowd, even though the crowd is not here, but I'm speaking outwardly to people that will hear this eventually. Used to be terrified to even do that. So of course, being in the music industry, that kind of held me back a lot. But hey, everything happens for a reason, and I played my part in being an artist. I think I brought the goods home to my kids because they are all, like I said, are so talented. And the other part I learned on my journey, my musical career journey, was that more so than the singing part, I love to create. One of the gifts that I have in music is I can listen to any beat and hear what it says. That's a gift to be able to do that. I can just automatically hear like what the wording should be. I can automatically hear like what the vocal arrangement should be, how the arrangement should sound, what ad libs should be there. So that's really like what I'm great at. It's not necessarily the vocal aspect of it, but it is. They call me hook master. So I'm really great at creating hooks for songs, and I'm really good at delivering an arrangement, a vocal arrangement, if someone needs that. So, but yeah, that's my joy about the music industry, and I wanted to just dive into my own personal experiences so that you can too think about like what was one of the things, if you go back to your childhood, that if you had to think about it, that really brought some insecurities into your life, and you've been dealing with it for a long time, or have you even dealt with it? If you haven't dealt with it, hey, it's time. And I'm sure it comes across several different ways that you don't even realize that, oh, I'm still dealing with this old stuff. And sometimes it even comes back up for me, and I just have to um, reassure myself that, okay, we're past this. It's not that it won't come back up, it's just that I'm stronger now and I can feel it, face it, and move on from it. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was one of the things that I have done over and over and over again is listen to Maya Angelou, Life Doesn't Frighten Me. And that is a poem that was written by her for children to celebrate the courage down on the inside of them, which helps me so much, a great deal, to help me also still understand that I had childhood trauma from my past and to be able to deal with it. So if you ever get an opportunity to listen to the poem by Maya Angelou, Life Doesn't Frighten Me, and it's really good for kids to listen, have a good listen to, especially if they're afraid of the dark at night, or just having some fears at school, or whatnot. With all of the new, with us being homebound, and a lot of children are at home now and online, it just may be some fear and anxiety, just about that. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them have adjusted, but maybe all of them haven't. So this just is a great way for them to be inspired within themselves. So I hope today has been encouraging to you. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of give you the gist of what's going to be happening now. It's the Miami Night Show. We're still going to have guests, but there will be days that I'm just going to come on and talk about a specific topic, to help us have a different perspective of our grief and our emotions and what they look like at any given point in time, along our journeys. So thank you so much for tuning in to It's the Miami Night Show Grief Talk. Bye-bye.
Slow mo. He's got me walking that grief walk. Going slow mo. He's got me talking that grief talk. Going slow mo. He's got me clocking it.
It's the Miami Night Show.
Hey, yeah. Slow mo. He's got me walking that grief walk. Going slow mo. He's got me talking that grief talk. Going slow mo. He's got me clocking it.
What up, tribe? It's Miami Night Show Master Grief Coach. Welcome to the Miami Night Show. He got me walking that grief walk. It's time for Grief Talk, y'all.
I talk about things you think about.
It's Miami Night Show Master Grief Coach.